Hello, welcome to the video. Today we're discussing job offer evaluation and salary negotiation to aid you in the upcoming job search and to help you look through all those opportunities that you're going to receive. My name is Raven Ortolan and I am a Senior Career Advisor in the John P. Fahey Career Center. Nice to know is that the Career Center is here for you not only while you're a student in your graduate or professional school program, but also as an alumni. Will continue to be a free resource for you, and you're welcome to schedule appointments. Of course, it can be via phone if you're a distance student. It doesn't have to be in person, but know that anything we discuss today, if you have questions on, you're welcome to schedule an appointment to discuss further. So first things first, let's talk about the offer evaluation. There's a couple things that we want to consider as the fundamentals of the job offer evaluation. So when we're thinking about the work itself, of course it can be tantalizing to take a job right when it's initially offered, but we really want to assess first and make sure that not only it's the type of space that we're interested in, retail versus hospital, or even just the type of environment, but that we really value and can respect our supervisor, that we feel like the team dynamics are strong, that they're going to be a good environment, and also that we are going to be proud working for the organization that we're joining, that we appreciate their mission, that we feel like we're going to be interested in working for them going forward. During the part of a job offer evaluation, communication is going to be incredibly important. If there is something that is going to be a deal breaker for you, you need to communicate that to your supervisor, and it's also a really good way to test what supervision is going to look like going forward. Are you able to communicate with the person that you're going to be working with? Is this a company that's going to value speaking your mind, etc.? Remember that they offered you a job, and that if you're in this space where you're looking over the offer, they want you. And so if you want them too, this is already a good place to be in. When we're going into this job offer evaluation, we want to be well informed, and we want to research what the average salary is, what expectations are for people in this field, so that we can handle the job offer evaluation better. And some things we'll be discussing today, looking at the comprehensive package from job duties to work settings. Salary, of course, is the big thing we think about with job offers, but that's not the only piece. We want to think of the total compensation of the offer. But what is total compensation? In essence, it's going to be, of course, salary, but we're also looking at the insurance benefits, paid time off. We're going to think about our retirement plans, whether it's vested or not. We're also going to look at life insurance, disability insurance, perhaps there's an employee assistance programs, or there's flexible spending accounts. And so really, this is the whole package we want to consider when we're looking at the benefits, not just our take-home number. And those are the basics of total compensation, but there's even more items to consider. Here we have a good example. We have a lot of bonuses, and this is not comprehensive. There could be others that we're not thinking here, but tuition reimbursement or loan forgiveness. There might be wellness programs, fitness. Parking is a big thing, whether you have to pay for it or not, or whether it's easy to access. Childcare options, whether you have a take-home electronics, whether meals are paid for, whether there's good on-site food. Flex time is huge, especially for those with developing families. Flex time can be a really great lifesaver. Recognitions, awards, or incentives, I would say professional development or travel opportunities can be a big one. Even things like around the local area, perhaps season tickets or some sort of additional incentives that could help make that job really enticing beyond merely the salary. So this is when we're talking about total compensation. We're thinking of all these different pieces. And most of this should be in the benefits package. So when you receive a job offer, I would not say yes or no in that phone call. I would say you would appreciate that they offered you the job and that you're really interested and you'd like to look over the benefits package to see if you have any questions about the offer before you accept. And so this is where you're going to be getting their benefits package and looking through to determine where these different pieces fall. Well, we talked about researching. And knowing what people typically make in your field is going to be huge. And we're going to talk about salary negotiation later. Of course, this is going to play into that piece as well. Now, there's different websites you can use, and I use multiple. Just kind of like when you're asking an opinion about something, you don't want just one person's opinion. You want multiple and kind of round it out so you can see the average. Here we have some suggestions. So salary.com, glassdoor.com. This 2017 Pharmacist Employment Survey is actually going to be government data. And so here I clicked on that link and it takes us to bls.gov, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this is specific employment and wage information to pharmacists. And so this would be a fantastic page to go through. You can see they're going to have a lot of different information about not only the top industries within pharmacy, but they're also going to break apart by state not only how many pharmacists are employed, but then they'll also get into salary ranges as well, which we can see here. And so I would say before you get too far into the job search process, I would do some of this research in advance so you have this in the back of your mind when you're starting to meet with employers. And likely salary isn't going to come up in your first round interview, probably won't come up in the second round interview. Usually salary conversations don't even start until you get the job offer. But I want you to know that this is here. So in addition to Glassdoor, in addition to salary.com, BLS.gov is great information. And here we just have that one clip from BLS.gov to show you the annual mean wage of pharmacists by area, and they're even breaking it in within the different states. So it's certainly a little bit difficult to see some of these areas, but Nebraska is a little bit easier to see. And this is also just some of the highlights from the BLS.gov. But certainly I would say in addition to looking at the salary, I would strongly recommend that you make a budget to determine not only what you're going to make, but what you would need to work in that locale and have the lifestyle that you would expect. So whether it's Omaha or whether it's moving to Washington or wherever it is that you're going to go, making a budget and knowing what your salary is going to bring in can help you when you're going into those salary conversations. Your salary, not only evaluating the offer, but later on when we talk about negotiating, this is going to be a key piece. Now this is a pretty basic personal budget worksheet just to give you an idea of things to consider. There are much better apps and browsers or information you can find online, but just to get a sense for the type of things you would consider, know what you're going to be taking away at the end of the day. So taking out your taxes from that salary, considering all of the different total compensation pieces, know what you're going to be taking away. So when you're trying to evaluate different offers, you know what that's going to look like in full, not just what that takeaway salary is and whether that's going to work with your budget needs. The other thing to consider is health insurance. Now, this is a brief overview. Again, there are more resources online that go in depth, but these are some of the highlights to consider. Now, as pharmacists, I'm sure that you are actually quite familiar with insurance of different kinds. This is something you're having to work with. But again, some of the basics, the employer is going to provide and pay for portions of your health insurance so that you have a lower monthly premium. And you're going to pay a monthly premium as well as any copays or additional charges until your deductible is reached. But there are some different types of things to consider. So the different types of plans would be preferred provide organizations and health maintenance organizations, so an HMO. And even within those, especially within the preferred provide organizations, there's going to be some differences. There's also different insurance company options and often a breadth of coverage. And so we can choose a high deductible plan or we can choose a low deductible plan based on our anticipated needs. We'll dive into this just a little bit. So, of course, we would want to ask some of the basic questions. Is there health insurance? Indeed, are they going to cover some of my health insurance? And then within that, what is covered? Vision and dental aren't always covered. Sometimes you need to pay additionally for that. And so if I was looking at different job offers, I would absolutely be looking to that. How much do I have to pay to get my teeth cleaned twice a year? Things like that. Depending on my family, I might be really interested or concerned with whether there are options to cover spouses or dependents. And then what insurance companies are available to choose from? Like, do I have multiple options and what do those different offerings look like? And then, of course, we're going to think about the different types of plans, PPO versus HMO, and I would look to see what my deductible would be for those different plans. How much money do I have to put in? And then how much money can I anticipate having to pay before my deductible is reached? And then, of course, knowing what different hospitals are covered within those plans would be key elements, and hopefully you can find some place that's easy near your home covered in those plans. And that's what I have to say on health insurance. But the other piece that we would really want to consider when we're looking at total compensation would be retirement plan overviews. When we're looking at retirement, we're putting money into a plan that's usually a mix of stocks and mutual funds managed by an investment firm, and this will grow in value and can be tapped into when we retire. Most employers offer plans called defined contribution plans. So that could be a 401k for a for-profit organization, or like at Creighton, a 403b for a nonprofit organization. Now, again, most companies are going to offer this, but the way that they do it could look different. So it might be contribution timeline, when they're going to contribute to your retirement plan. Maybe it's right when you start working, maybe it's after 6 months, maybe it's after a few years, whether they're going to match how much you put in. So it may be that they're willing to match you up to $5,000 or something similar, but maybe they're not going to match at all. And so that absolutely can make a big difference when you see how much money can get put into your retirement plan year after year. Looking at the vesting timeline and when you can start putting your own money into the retirement plan, and then also investment firm options. So if you're someone who's savvy and is able to determine where you would like your money invested, some companies are going to let you have more power over that with your retirement plan than others. Some of the big questions you would want to consider with retirement would be, when am I eligible to contribute to the plan? And then, is there a company match? And if so, what percentage is it? Is there a vesting schedule? What is it? And then what investment firms can I choose from? And they have some suggestions listed here. So we covered these pretty well, but again, kind of basic things to consider when we're looking over a job offer. Okay, so we have a lot of information about what total compensation is. We have some things that we want to consider when we're looking over different job offers, but how do we compare, right? Let's put this to practice. Now, I will say that these two offers are going to make less likely than you will make as a pharmacist, but still a really good example. So we're looking at offer A and offer B. So we can see that the base salary for B is higher by $5,000. So at first sight, looking really good. Then we go down to health insurance and we see how much we're going to be paying per year for health insurance. It's a bit higher at offer B. We don't have all the information. We don't know what our deductible is, but we do have a sense it's going to be more expensive. Then looking at parking for offer A, parking is free. Parking is going to cost at offer B, so it'd be $500 per month. Then we look at the 401k and the match, and so we're looking at how much money we're able to put in and put aside for retirement, but then also whether there's a match. And there is a match at offer A, so they're putting some money aside based on what you did. Looks like they have an individual contribution at 3% that they're helping you with, so they're putting money back. And then we have $2,000 in perks at offer A. We don't know what those are. It could be childcare, it could be travel, it could be professional development, et cetera, but there are some bonuses that offer A has that offer B does not. And then looking at the taxes that you would have to pay, we're having to pay about $14,400 for offer A, about $15,600 for B. So our actual take-home total compensation is going to be a little bit higher at offer A at the end of the day than it would be at offer B. Now, does that mean that we automatically are going to go with offer A because they pay more? Not necessarily, right? Because we're thinking way back to that first slide. We're thinking about fit, we're thinking about where we want to be. And if offer B is a much better environment, we might still choose offer B even with the compensation a little bit less. But this could also be excellent fodder for a salary negotiation, which of course we're going to talk about in just a moment. So these would be the things I would want to do, though, in these type of offer evaluation before I enter salary negotiations and before I determine where I really find myself at home with one of the companies. Excellent. So then, thinking about salary negotiation, and I would say this can often be intimidating for people, but this is a conversation that employers have all the time. So even though you may not have done this before, you may not have negotiated a salary, they're familiar with it. So you will not be the first person to have this conversation with them. Well, the first thing to think about is why or when to negotiate. We don't negotiate when there's not a reason to. We want to make sure that we have a strong reason that we're negotiating. Some of the reasons might be that your skills, your experience, your education are more than the basic requirements. And so you've looked at that job description, you know that perhaps you've done a pharmacy residency or you have great experience that you had before you went into the pharmacy program. That means you more than meet those qualifications. So that could be a reason. It could be that the pay range is less than the industry average. So if we go back and we considered those other slides where we were looking up salary.com and we were looking at BLS.gov, we know what we're supposed to make. We know what our experiences are worth. And I would say, I forgot to mention this, but on Glassdoor.com, you can actually do a survey and put in your experience and they'll estimate what your specific salary should be. So if we've done that and we realize that the range is less than the industry average, that would be another reason that we might negotiate. Then cost of living is higher and salary doesn't reflect that. So if you get the same offer from, someplace in California than you are in Omaha, Nebraska, and this is the same amount of money, well, of course, it's going to be much more expensive to live in California, so that would be potentially a reason to negotiate in that setting. And then also you could have received multiple offers with similar benefits. So thinking just back to that previous slide about the offer evaluation, if we go down to it and we see, well, I was offered at so-and-so company, and at the end of the day, it's actually going to be a better deal to go there, but I want to stay here, that would be an excellent reason to negotiate salary. So talking about when to negotiate salary, we touched on this earlier, but the best time would be after the offer is made by the employer. So you don't want to be the first person to bring it up because that's going to be awkward. That's typically taboo. Certainly I wouldn't bring it up in a first round or a second round interview. Most of the time employers won't either. They will wait until you are offered the position. If you are tasked, and sometimes you will be, with putting down what your desired salary is on your application, we recommend putting open or negotiable. If they are forcing you to put down a number, which sometimes they will, I would put it right after you've done your research and you know what the average salary is. I would put that salary like maybe slightly higher than the average that I think that I should make for myself, and by slightly higher, like maybe 2,000 higher, something like that. But I wouldn't just put the base amount because I want to get a little bit more for myself. But I also don't want to be unreasonable. I wouldn't put 10,000 higher than the average. And then it's best if you can negotiate salary in person. Sometimes that's not feasible. Sometimes this will be an over the phone conversation. But if you can pick, in person is going to usually lead to better results. And you're going to be indicating a range of salary based on your knowledge of field and skill. And so what this means here, you can see that usually a range is about $5,000. So based on your research, you're going to determine that there's about a $5,000 salary expectation for what you should be making going into that. And we have some language here to help you in that. So let's say that the offer they made was, $58,000 or $56,000. Based on the industry average and my level of experience and education, I am seeking between $60,000 and $65,000. Or I'm aware that the typical range for this kind of position is $60,000 to $65,000, and I'd like to be at the higher end of the range if possible. So you want that even the lower end of the range you give them to be a salary that you would be happy with. Because if you're really, really hoping for $62,000 and you give them $60,000, and if that's not going to be feasible for you, you've budgeted and you realize that you're not going to be comfortable with that lower end, then I wouldn't give that. Because it's conceivable that if you're giving them this range, they're going to put you at the lower end of it. So thinking about some of the logistics for negotiating salary, let the employer go first with the offer. We've talked about this before, but let that come from them first. So if the salary they offer is less than expected, then you're going to point to your research to argue your point and counter their offer with your research and desired range and emphasize your interest in the position and finding a compromise. And that's really key. We really want to be polite here. We really want to sound enthusiastic. Like, I would love to work at your company. It sounds great. I'm really interested in the culture here. If you can just help me out with this salary, I feel like we would have a great fit and I can start off with a good footing. You wouldn't want them to feel like they have to fight for someone that doesn't really want the position. So you can just help them abate that by being enthusiastic through this process and confirming your interest. Other variables to offer that could be negotiated. So there could be a signing bonus or a relocation stipend if you're moving across the country. It might be that they're going to be able to negotiate the retirement plan, maybe how much that they're able to match, or the contribution or vesting timeline. Maybe it's the amount of paid time off that you're able to get, or perhaps you're able to do some tuition reimbursement going forward or some loan repayment. So if salary is non-negotiable, I would already have a plan in place before I start salary negotiations to say if they're going to come to me and say for whatever reason they're not able to negotiate salary, which could happen, and we do need to respect that, is there something else that I can negotiate that would make me happy with this offer? I would already have a backup plan. You don't want to try to improvise that during negotiations. That could be uncomfortable. And then lastly, keep conversation reasonable and honest. So understand where they're coming from. Don't get greedy or frustrated if they aren't able to negotiate for whatever reason. Their company isn't able to. you don't want to get upset, especially if it's a company you'd work at anyway. Handle it with grace, and then be cautious of leveraging with other offers. So if you are saying that I also got an offer down the street and they're offering more money, if I'm saying something like that, again, I'm going to confirm though that this is the place I'm negotiating with is the place I really want to work. So I would delicately leverage. So while I did receive an offer and they were able to offer me a little bit more than you're currently able to, I have an offer there for, and I would probably specify the amount of money, like $63,000. However, you're my first choice and I'm really interested. Would you be able to negotiate in any way to increase the amount of salary I would get here to make it so that when I start here, I'm at the same range that the other place is offering? Because again, this is where I want to work. And so reinforce that this is your first choice. And so just some additional tips to consider. Many employers expect candidates to negotiate. So don't go in thinking you're being difficult. This is an expectation. Employers rarely are going to negotiate beyond 5 to 10% of the original offer. So if it's way lower than your expectations, it's probably not going to get as high as you want it to be. These are some employers that cannot negotiate. So federal, state, and local government positions, public schools, some social service agencies, and certain union positions might not be able to. So again, kind of consider if they're saying they're not able to negotiate, that might be a reason. But keep in mind they want to hire you. That's why you're having this conversation in the first place. Okay, so final offer. Once you know what it's going to be, they've either negotiated if that was on the table. Either accept the offer, ask time to consider the offer, or decline the offer. And we want to do this pretty quickly. We certainly don't want to ghost an employer and leave them on the line, especially if we are declining an offer and we know that we're going to. It can feel uncomfortable to reject someone, but that's the best, most professional thing that you can do. So thinking about accepting the offer, you want to get the offer in writing, including the start date, the salary, the employment location, and the details of the benefit package. So get that in, usually an email. Don't look for other offers. If you're accepting, you're done. That's the professional thing. You don't want to say, well, I'm going to keep you as my backup and we'll look somewhere else. That's a great way to burn a bridge, which you don't want to do. And then contact other active applications and remove yourself from consideration. That would also be a good best practice. You don't want to waste another employer's time once you've accepted someone's offer. But you could choose to ask for time to consider. Maybe you are looking somewhere else as well. And it is acceptable to ask for time to decide, but again, they could take that offer away. So if you're asking time to consider, do try to impress to them that you're very interested in that position, because it's not a guarantee they're going to keep it for you. Typically 1 to 2 weeks is an acceptable extension. Probably I would be tentative in my phrasing. I'm really interested in your company. I have to confer with my family and we're making some final decisions here. Would it be okay if I got back to you within the week with a final decision? And please let me know if that's okay. So I probably phrase it somewhat like that so that they don't get worried that I'm actually looking at somewhere else once they've already gone through that negotiation with me and arrived at a salary. And then of course you could also decline the offer. Communicate that decision as soon as possible, and then follow up with a professional letter expressing your appreciation for the offer, and on a wonderfully professional note so that potentially in the future, if you do become interested in them, they have a good impression of you. And just remember your resources, your faculty and clinical instructors. You have Creighton's network that you have at your disposal to use. There are professional organizations, and of course you have the Career Center. And so we have on our website salary information and an interviewing guide, and you can also make appointments with us. We can have a lot of these conversations about this presentation or other topics, either in person or over the phone. And then you can find a lot of jobs through Handshake, which is our job posting system, which we have on our Career Center website. So that is what we have today. I've really appreciated having this conversation with you. I would say if you have any questions and you didn't really want to have a meeting, but you have an email question, that's fine. You can see my name there, Raven Ortolan, and my email is simply ravenortolan@creighton.edu, and I would welcome to hear from you. But please do check out our website. We have lots of great resources, and good luck on that job search. I'm excited for you, and I wish you well.